Okay, you guys, do you have plans this fall? Guess what? We have plans for you. September the 13th, fall in Nashville is amazing, and we would love, if you live out of state, for you to come be with us and experience the beauty of Tennessee and a whole day of learning. We're hosting a conference called Raising Capable Kids. Jump on our website, check out the show notes for a link, and we'd love to see you there.
Welcome to the Raising Boys and Girls podcast.
I'm Sissy Goff.
And I'm David Thomas, and we're so glad you've joined us for this conversation. Let's dive in.
Jodie Benson is best known as the voice of Ariel in Disney's The Little Mermaid. Jodie also gave voice to Barbie in Disney Pixar's Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3, and delighted Disney fans with a cameo in Enchanted before reprising her role as Ariel in Ralph Breaks the Internet. In 2011, Disney honored Jodie's contributions by making her a Disney legend. Talk about the stuff dreams are made of. An accomplished singer, dancer, and actress, Jodie made her starring role debut on Broadway, performing the iconic song Disneyland in the Howard Ashman, Marvin Hamlish musical Smile. And she earned a Tony nomination for her role as Polly Baker in the hit Gershwin musical Crazy for You. Still entertaining audiences across the country and around the world, Jodie is currently living in northern Georgia with her wonderful husband, Ray. They enjoy spending time with their two amazing adult children, McKinley and Delaney. And make sure and listen through this whole episode because there is so much goodness coming from our new friend, Jodie.
Jodie, we are thrilled to meet you. We have been fans of your work for a long time, starting with The Little Mermaid, and just delighted to get to share time and conversation with you today. And we'd love to begin by just having you share a little bit about your story, your family, and how you found your way to the work you're doing.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your podcast. It's lovely to meet both of you. Well, that's a big loaded question, isn't it? Tell us your whole life story in 30 seconds. Yeah, so here I am. I'm actually in our schoolroom. We're taught both of our kids for a total of 17 years, homeschooling in North Georgia.
Wow.
Lake, looking out at the lake right now, which has been a huge blessing. And it's just been an incredible journey in the industry for 45 years now, I think. I've been with Disney for 38 years. And that is tons of fun. So, and then just kind of had this opportunity to do this crazy book against my will. And here we are.
Yes. And you have two kids who are, how old are your kids now?
Our son McKinley just turned 26, and he has been married it'll be 3 years in June. To our amazing daughter-in-law, Mackenzie. And yes, McKinley and Mackenzie, so we call them M&M. M&M is just an easier way for our immediate family to communicate quickly through text message and group text and stuff. And they live just under an hour from us in Atlanta, where they both work. Our son's in the film and television industry. He's currently on Tulsa King for a year with Sly Stallone, and is the assistant to the executive producer of 101 Films. Graduated SCAD in May of 2020 when the world shut down, and thankfully he has been working nonstop ever since then, which is quite miraculous. And then our daughter-in-law is a portrait photographer, and she works for Stitch Fix, and she shoots on model and is their digital color specialist for all of their photos for their website and for their social media. And then our daughter, Delaney, is 23, and she lives in New York City, and she is doing musical theater. So we have both kids in the industry, which is crazy that we're all in the same wild industry that is erratic and just out of control. But, it's what they've been called to do. So they are loving it. And they, to be what you love and what you've been gifted at, and to be able to pay your bills. It's the sweet spot of the circle to be a part of, which was like 5% of us in this world that get to do what we love and that we're
Mm.
gifted and passionate about and can pay our bills. So
Yes, all of
that's
those
a
things together.
miracle.
Well, let's talk for a minute about the movie. So we love to ask, how has being Ariel changed your life? How has it changed you?
Oh gosh, and huge ways. I mean, I would probably say since I was cast in 1986 or seven, I would say every kind of experience, every job, every really neat opportunity since then has been because of my relationship with the Disney company as well as my connection with the film. So it's been this incredible ride, and wasn't quite the path that I was pursuing when I moved to New York for musical theater, and my love was Broadway, to sing and dance and act. And God had another plan when this audition came up and sort of took a right turn. And it's been an unbelievable experience, the experiences I've had since then. So definitely, my relationship to the company and to this film has been life changing for me and for my family.
Well, so how old were you when you auditioned for The Little Mermaid?
I think I was 23 or 24.
Wow.
And again, it was just a fluke. I was doing a Broadway musical called Smile with Howard Ashman and Marvin Hamlish. And our show tragically closed quickly with a New York Times review. And so we thought we'd have a job for the next, maybe 3 to 5 years. And it was about 6 weeks. And Howard was already working on The Little Mermaid as lyricist and executive producer, or co-producer, I'm sorry. And so he gave a handful of us girls the opportunity to audition for Ariel. And as I say, it was just something to do on the way to the unemployment office. So, I mean, had I been doing the Broadway musical and had we been successful, I would not have auditioned for Little Mermaid. I don't think that would have come about. So I never in a
Amazing.
million years, thought that I would ever get the job, of course. And so that was a huge shock a year later to be cast. And I thought I'd never been behind a microphone before. I'd never done voiceover before. So I didn't know what I was doing and what I was getting myself into.
I would
So,
imagine.
but thankfully, Howard stepped in. We had directors on, and John Muskin and Ron Clements were the directors for our film. And they knew that I had a working relationship with Howard because he was just my director on Smile. And they could see how tentative and nervous I was. So he directed me for Mermaid, which was great. So he just stood next to me the whole time in the studio and got me to get through everything. I couldn't have done it without
Wow.
him. So very grateful.
Yes. Well, and thinking about that and the twists and turns and us as believers all knowing that God knows
Yeah.
way ahead of what we know.
Right.
Thinking back about those beginning days, what do you wish someone had said to you?
Well, I think the greatest lesson that I learned during Mermaid was from Howard, because I was a perfectionist for my life, for almost all my childhood and my life, and trying to, prove myself and find that worth and find that value in what I did for a living. And it was Howard that really taught me in the studio, I don't want this to be perfect because no one can relate to Ariel if she's perfect. She just needs to be real and authentic and vulnerable and honest. And that's what we're looking for in this character. So when I finished all my sessions and then I went to the screening of the film, and it wasn't completely finished, it was still a pencil sketch as well. Howard came up, he's like, you're probably not going to like what you hear. You're not probably going to like all of part of your world because it's not perfect, but it's perfect for Ariel. And he was right. That was a huge lesson that I really took to heart and started making a shift in who I was as a person and as a performer, as an artist, and have passed that lesson on to my kids in a big way, especially to our daughter who is doing the same track that I was doing, and that I am doing. And so I can say, at your age, this is the lesson I wish I would have learned at 20.
Mm.
You had the opportunity to learn this lesson now. I didn't. And it's taking me decades to really, break away and kind of scrape off that perfectionism quality, which in a lot of ways, it can be a great attribute as far as my organizational skills and my ability to, as far as admin goes and things like that. So there's a lot of great qualities about it, but the one of expecting, every performance, every time I sing a song to be perfect, I'm constantly saying to my daughter, they don't want perfection. They don't want it to be perfect. They want your character to be real and authentic and vulnerable.
Mm.
It's wonderful.
Oh, no.
Thinking from then until now, let's talk about being named a Disney legend.
Yeah.
What was that like
Amazing.
for you?
Well, that day, during that season, let's just put it that way. So there had been a season of what we call refreshing. So at the studios, there will be seasons of refreshment where people who do voices and maybe can't continue to do the voice or create the voice, or they just want a fresh new person in to create the voice, those seasons come and go. So I had been with the company for quite some time at that time when I got this phone call. And so we were in a season of refreshing. And so when Chris Montan, the head of Walt Disney Music, called me, it was, I think, an assistant that said, hold the line for Chris. And I was like, okay, I'm ready for my call. This is my time. I've had a really great run and I'm so grateful. So he got on the phone. He was like, hey, Jodie, it's Chris. I said, listen, it's all good. Everything's good. I'm happy. I'm grateful. I'm thankful. I'm blessed. I've had an amazing run. And so it's all good. I'm totally fine with that. And I appreciate you calling me in person. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I was wondering if we could fly you to LA if you would like to be inducted as a Disney legend. And so I dropped the phone. This wasn't a cell phone. It was a landline. And I dropped the phone and then I picked it back up. He's like, are you okay? I said, oh, no, I just thought you were letting me go. I mean, it was totally fine. I'm ready for that phone call.
Wow.
Waiting for it, and yeah, so I said, absolutely, I'll be there. So I still was pretty stunned and I still am stunned. I go to Walt Disney Studios for work. I've been going there about once a month. I have a kind of a new position with the company as of October. And so I've been going every month. And when I go to my meetings and to where I need to go, I have to walk through Legends Plaza. So I walk through every month and I just go over and I stare at it, and I just look at it. I put my hand in the handprint and I still I'm sure I have imposter syndrome where I still have a hard time realizing what I've done or who I am in relationship to other people who have grown up their whole lives with my character and with my film,
Yes.
our film. And I'm still just in awe. I mean, I just stand there and I'm sure cast members, I know that employees, they know who I am. And they see me just standing there staring at it. And I take a picture. I take a picture every time and I just kind of go, oh, I just can't believe this. I still can't believe this. This has really happened, So it's kind of silly. And people walk by and say, can you take my picture with you in front of you? I'm like, oh, okay. Kind of looks like I'm just sitting here waiting for people to come and take their picture with me. It's sort of like Santa Claus, but no, it's just because I'm blown away, and I tell my bosses, everyone's walked by the plaza, I'm just sort of stare at it and can't believe it, and my friends, and yeah, it's still really good.
I bet. What a great word. Well, so along those lines, I mean, you also have voiced Barbie in the Toy Story franchise. You've done so many different things. And thinking about your career that I'm very grateful is not over, is still happening. When is another moment that felt like a how in the world did I get here moment?
Oh my goodness, there are so many. Yeah, there. I usually if I get asked a question like that, usually something will just kind of pop into my mind.
Mm,
Um, I think standing on the stage at Carnegie Hall, uh,
mm,
Mm.
with the New York Phil with the orchestra standing behind me, and a childhood dream was to be at
wow.
Carnegie Hall and to sing to Alan Menken in the box in his honor, his song that he and Howard wrote for me. Those are those moments that are very surreal,
Mm.
that you just can't believe it's actually happening. Another couple things that just came up. My daughter and I just did a second production of Gypsy together, and
Mm,
we're the only real mother-daughter that have ever played Mama Rose and Louise as a mother-daughter. So it's
wow.
really pretty special. And so there I am, when I'm standing on stage looking at my daughter, but she's my scene partner and I'm playing opposite her. And I'm just like, I've got these two hats going back and forth between mom and coworker. And those are very surreal moments, very
Mm,
surreal. I just kind of, watching her play Ariel last summer in Miami, sing Part of Your World to me, and I'm staring at her on stage and, surreal moments that you would never guess in a million years.
yes.
Being on the set at Sweet Magnolias, my son has been the associate producer for the last 2 seasons. And I get cast and do like 4 episodes. So being on the set, watching my son in the director's chair next to the producer, and I'm just like, this is surreal. When did I ever
Mm,
think that I would get to work with? Who would have ever thought I'd ever get to work with both of my kids? That's just surreal to me. So God has
mm,
a great creative pathway for us all, and I could never have, read this off. I could have never had these types of experiences. So
mm,
the word that immediately pops up to me is just grateful. I'm just
yeah.
grateful, and
Mm.
I would have never thought that these types of things would ever happen.
You are also an author with a book called Part of My World.
I would not use that as part of my title.
Well, we'd love to ask, what was it like sharing your story through words in that
Horrible.
way?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So never, ever, 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 ever wanted to write a book. I mean, ever, ever. So made that very clear. And then Tyndale called and I said, absolutely no. Thank you. And then they called 3 months later and I said, absolutely no, but thank you. Then they called again and they're like, listen, we really need you to pray about this. Because here's the thing. You don't want to do this, but we think our readers could benefit from hearing some of your journey. You know.
Mm,
So we kind of started, and nothing was written down. It was all recorded. Just me on the phone, for hours and hours and hours and hours with my writer, Carol. She was just amazing. So we became instant friends. So we spent hours together and we draw something up and they send back a little proof of chapters 1 and 2. I read it and I was like, no, this is a hard no. Because they said you have the right to be able to start it and you have the right to be able to stop it. So I stopped it. And they were so gracious. They were so gracious. I said, no, so sorry. I'm not feeling peaceful about this at all. And they're like, what don't you feel peaceful about? I said, it's like an autobiography and I hate it. I don't need to tell my story in this way. It's just cheesy. It feels self-righteous, self-absorbed. It's just everything that I don't really care for. And so we stopped and we took like a 3-month hiatus. And then Carol came back to me and she said, listen, let's just think about this one little thing. What if you turned it into 24 thank you notes? Let's just say 24 little stories that give honor and thanks and put the focus on other people. What do you think about that? I said, I like that idea. I could deal with that. If we could take the focus off of me and put it on other people, I don't think I'll feel so icky about the process. So that's kind of how we flipped it. We sort of made it like not a devotional, but sort of like you could just pick it up, read one little chapter. It would take you 5-7 minutes or whatever. Put it down. And then maybe a week later, you might pick up another little story and you get a little nugget or a little tidbit out of mistakes that I made or something that I learned, or whatever. Yeah, so that's kind of how it came about. But it came about, obviously, me fighting it, every step of the way. And I will never do it again. But I did have my friend, Susan Egan, who's the voice of Meg from Zara and Hercules. And we've known each other since the 80s in theater. And she's like, you know what, Jodie? I know you feel really icky about this and you don't want to promote it. And you don't want to talk about it. And you don't want to publicize it and all this. But you know what? These are like the last special written things about Howard that nobody knows about. And they're private stories, but they reveal something, another side of Howard that most people didn't know about besides his husband and his sister. So of course I ran it by Sarah and Bill and I had to make sure everybody was comfortable with what I was sharing. But, she said, I'm just going to say to you, I think you're being very softened. She said that to me at lunch one day. She's like, I think this whole thing that you have this attitude about your book, I think you're being very softened. And I was like, what? Wow, I didn't even think about that. She goes, yeah, I think you're robbing people of knowing things about Howard and other people that they'll never know if you don't say, if you don't tell your story. And I think that's when I came back to Tyndale and we tried to, think through what that would look like. But that really hit me.
Well, I'm so grateful you wrote it. And I would imagine there are so many people inspired by it. I mean, even just what we've learned about your story so far of courage and resilience and all the things my guess is just spending a few minutes with you would say, no, but are certainly true. So we are so grateful.
I felt like I just need, sometimes, and I think I just said this to my husband yesterday. He said, sometimes there's just things I just don't want to do. But that's where obedience comes into play. It's not about what I want or what I don't want. It's about being obedient. And sometimes when I'm being obedient, like I had to do stuff this week and I just didn't want to, but I knew it was the right thing. I knew it's what I was supposed to do. I have confirmation and peace. This is what I'm supposed to do. But sometimes being obedient, I just don't like it. So I told my husband yesterday, I said, I'm just having to be obedient right now, but I'm not really happy about it. That's kind of how it felt with the book. That I just had to plow through and be obedient and then just let it go. And God kept saying, he's like, it's just not about you, Jodie. You don't need to, people ask me all the time, like, how many copies were sold and what's this? I'm like, I have no idea. I have no clue. And I don't care because it's none of my business. And it doesn't matter to me because God's like, just do it, be obedient, and then forget about it. You don't have to deal with anything because it's not about you. It's about what I'm doing through you. And sometimes you don't need to know all the details.
Yes.
Just be obedient and then just let it go and move on. And I'm like, okay,
yes.
I can do that.
And trust in the process. Yes. Well, okay, I want to circle back to something you mentioned before, Sweet Magnolias, which I love.
Yeah.
And it's so fun to hear about your son's role in that. So thinking about that show, would love to hear more about what it's been like to be a part of it. Do you have a favorite moment of that recently?
Gosh, first of all, again, I was in 2020, my I was planning my retirement as the world was shutting down. And but God's like, no, that's not what's happening. So in February of 2021, I started back on stage. I started making appearances again. I started doing my conventions again. I started working back with Florida and California at the parks. And then it ended up being these last years since COVID have been my biggest years in my career. It's so bizarre. Like, I mean, at 63, it's like, are you kidding me? These are like the busiest, craziest, most creative years of my entire career of the 45 years now. So never did a TV series before, never done anything like that. And I guess they have been looking for Cal's mom for quite some time. Well, I went on set. My birthday present from my son was I got to sit on set. And it was hard lock of COVID, hard lock. So I sat in the back left-hand corner with my mask on all day and just watched him work. It was so much fun. And of course, I loved the show before he got the show. He didn't even know what the show is when he got the job. I was like, you don't know Sweet Magnolia? He said, no, Mom, it's not my cup of tea. I said, well, it better be your cup of tea because you're sitting next to the executive producer, creator, owner, and he's going to ask you for input on scripts. And I said, so we are going to have a hard training session these next 4 days.
Way to go.
Great.
Yeah. So I told him everything about it. He watched all the episodes. Well, he kind of did his little synopsis thing, every single episode. And I said, I'll bring you up to date. I said, because you have to know these people. You better know these names. And I know the show. I love the show and I know everything about it. And plus I love the actresses, the 3 actresses. I think they're so fantastic. And I had seen Brooke Elliott in her previous fabulous show that I loved. And then I knew Heather Headley from Broadway and we had worked together before. So I was like, oh, I love this show. So, all right. So long story short, they're looking for Cal's mom. And of course, I never come across the board on that. I do have an agent, but I have no TV credits. So they're not going to see somebody who's never been on camera before. I mean, obviously I'm on camera for publicity and for Disney, but not in a TV series to see, can this girl handle this? I'm a theater kid, so, and all of a sudden the producer turned to McKinley and said, wait a minute, what about your mom? And he's like, my mom for Cal's mom. What about your mom for Cal's mom? And he's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding that you've considered her? It's her favorite show. And they said, yeah, but we want you to make the decision first before we reach out to her because she's going to be coming into your work, this coming into your territory. You may not want your mom at work. He goes, oh no, I want that. So he called me and he goes, Mom, you are coming in, to get on tape and audition for Cal's mom. I'm like, this is incredible. So I walked in like a week later and all the people are behind the table and there's the cameras and the lights and, and I'm excited. Of course, I make a joke, something like, because I had met them all when I went on set that one day for my birthday. And so I said, well, this is reverse nepotism and I am loving it. I said, I love this. And I'm here because of my son. Thank you so much. And so I auditioned and I thought, I didn't hear anything. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, my son called and he goes, guess who's Cal's mom? Hello, Iris. It's nice to meet you. I'm like, oh my God. So I had so much fun. But the funniest thing cracked me up, though, is that before my first day of work, McKinley called me. And I love to tell this on him because it's so funny. But he goes, okay, Mom. All right, so you're coming to set tomorrow. I just want to lay down the ground with you. I'm like, okay. And of course, I've been in the industry for 45 years. So this preface. Okay, so here's the thing, Mom. You don't come up and talk to me. Don't stop me. Don't speak to me. You just do your job and I'll do my job and I will text you when I can meet you at the craft table or a break. Don't come up to me. And I was like, did you really think I was going to come? Oh, there's my baby boy. So that's what we did for the whole time. Nobody knew except for the head honcho people. Nobody knew that we were mother-son. even with the same last name. Nobody ever questioned it. We never talked. We would text each other, and I'd say, I'm on a break. And he'd say, I'll meet you at the craft table in 2 minutes. And so we can go up to the craft table and something. I'm on that. How are you doing, Mom? So we didn't say anything. So then, like, one of my last days of shooting, all of a sudden, out of the blue, he comes up with like a bunch of his friends. Hey, everybody, this is my mom. And Mom, can you take pictures with all my friends? So I do all that. And I'm like, oh, the cat's on the bag. He's like, oh, yeah, it's fine now. In the meantime, all these people were coming up to me, my hair, my makeup, my wardrobe people. Are you kidding me? McKinley is your son? Why didn't we figure this out? I said, well, we kept it on the down here. Yeah, so it was so much fun. Had so much.
That's so great.
Yeah, we're waiting to hear about season 5. We're waiting for the pickup announcement. And according to the sources that Iris is coming back. So we'll see.
Yay!
Fantastic.
Good.
You never know.
Well, so you were a part of our Music City series this summer because we're in the Music City in Nashville. Your music has certainly shaped so many. And so we would love to know if there is a song or an artist that has had a huge part in shaping you and who you've become.
Yes. Barbara Streisand. Yeah. Everything that she was a part of when I was growing up, I was just so inspired by her. She was,
wow,
and is. She's smart. She's wise. She's gifted. She's talented. She's strong. She's an amazing storyteller, which I love about her vocals as a vocalist. Her vocals were never perfect, and I love that. I love that she would sing and kind of catch you to not, you would expect the song to go one way and she would take it a different direction and kind of surprise you. I love that aspect of her storytelling. So I would definitely say she would be a huge influence on me.
So fun to hear.
So good. Well, we end every episode with something fun and food related. So we shift from the substantive to the silly, and we're going to end with a 2-part food related question. Part 1 is queso or guacamole, and part 2 is what's your favorite taco?
Oh, we're doing a whole Southwestern. Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to have to go with guac. Definitely going to have to go with guac. And as far as a taco goes, when I have them, which is not very often, it has to be turkey. Yeah. And I am a soft shell, not a hard shell. Got to have sour cream, guac, and queso, and salsa, and lettuce, and cilantro. Lots of cilantro.
That sounds good.
Sounds amazing.
Jodie, thank you so much. And, as you were talking, I was thinking about how, I don't know what year The Little Mermaid came out, but I think it may have been my freshman year in college.
1989. 1989.
Yes.
November of 1989.
Yes. And I remember somewhere along that time either seeing you in an interview or reading that you were a Christian. And you were one of the first Christians I ever heard of in Hollywood. I mean, I feel like people weren't saying it out loud then, and it was so inspiring to me and so encouraging and affirming. And it's so fun to sit with you now and that you are as genuine and lovely and kind and disarming and all the things that you were told to be with your music. You're vulnerable and humble. I mean, so many things. And we're just so grateful to get to have you on this show and meet you. And we know this is going to be inspiring to everybody who listens.
Indeed.
First of all, that's super sweet. All those lovely things. First, you'd have to run that by my husband and my 2 kids to see if they'd agree with that. But no, I thank you so much. That's so kind. I appreciate that. I'm glad that, our film made an impact for you. That's really good. And I do appreciate you having me in Nashville. Is near and dear to my heart. It's where my husband and I met in 1980 at Opulent Theme Park, which is now the parking lot to the Opulent Hotel. We did shows a day of I Hear America Singing live with an orchestra and dance
Wow.
singing partners. And we met in 1980 and we've been together ever since.
Wow. What
Went
a
on
great
45
story.
years this May, which is so crazy. So anyways, Nashville is very special to us.
Oh, we love that. Well,
It's a joy to spend time with
it
you.
is. Thank you
for
so
being with
much.
us.
Thank you both so much for having me. I really appreciate it. You and all of your listeners and your viewers, I pray that you're blessed.
David, what a team we have that we get to call friends who help make this podcast possible. Chris Starrett, our engineer,
Our management team at KCH.
and we are thrilled to be a part of the That Sounds Fun network.
Our music was created by the insanely talented Dave Haywood of Lady A.
And if this podcast felt helpful to you, please consider subscribing, liking, sharing, all the things.
We are grateful for you and cheering you on always.
If you like the podcast, leave us a great review.